there are many things going on, but nobody seems to know what the big picture is. I think we need to know from knowledge of the local context or the national context how much of this can be addressed by a global strategy.
We need to support each other, to express solidarity. But to start with all of that, I think at first we should name the problem.
Do we really want somebody to be imprisoned to pay attention to this pressure? Let's do some proactive work. Let's gather database. Let's develop some rules or some information. Let's publish it to see the whole picture.
Self-censorship is much higher in a country where violent threats can actually lead to you being killed. Whereas I think in other countries, perhaps it's has more psychological effect, that you're getting death threats or rape threats all the time, but that perhaps you have less of a fear that those will actually happen. Whereas in Mexico, with such a level of impunity and such high levels of violence, it is very believable that if you get threats of physical violence online and that they're threatened that they're going to come look for you, you will believe that that actually will happen because it has happened in so many cases.
We have seen screen grabs of these kinds of attacks that chills the zeal of a journalist to continue to cover a story that must be told. Because one, it endangers them, but more than that, it endangers even the members of their own families. So there is a chilling effect. And we must worry when that happens, because who will tell the stories that need to be told? Who will tell the stories that those in power want to be hidden? Who will force them to tell the truth and speak that truth to power?
How do women journalists work all over the world? Not just in so-called third world. I'm sure that there are a lot of cases of pressure for women journalists in Eastern and Western Europe as well.
We often are afraid to speak about the problems that we encounter as women journalists. It is necessary also to solve a whole scope of things, from self-censorship through psychological problems to safety issues to maybe help with some legal applications to police.
When women start self-censoring or stop working on perhaps issues related to massacres, disappearances, femicide, then we don't hear the voices, not just of the women who are covering the stories, but the women that are the focus of the story, that often their stories go unheard.
If the reporters are only men, they pay more attention to the arms, to the marks of weapons, but they do not pay attention to hungry children, to those who do not receive medical assistance. I think women journalists can be good professionals, and they can have access to those hotspots where men will not have access, so they have advantage there. And they add a lot of humanity to their reports.
There are a lot of difficult conditions in everyday work in women journalists, but not all of them is harassment. So part of them is usual problems which every journalist faces in his everyday life, but part of them are typically women's journalists' problem, fighting for equity and fighting for doing their jobs.
You not only deserve respect, but you also can have influence, that you can punish the aggressor, that there are instruments to do that, that you should not stay alone at home and cry, but you should go and speak publicly, and you will not be harassed for that.
We need to accept the fact that perhaps there is a greater force that wishes to reorder the values that we have recognized to be part of how we want to be as a democracy in the Philippines. That we are fighting not just our local politicians, we are probably standing up against a reordering of our values in the world.